Can you give me access to start the video? Hello?
Hold on.
I just did, Dr. Day. You should
All
be
right, good. Thank you. How are you?
Good.
well.
Good, good.
Who else do we need to add?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Marissa, Capri. Hello.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Good.
Grateful to be
You?
here.
Yes, we're so
Good.
happy that you are with us. Lillian,
Pleasure.
Camille.
Thank you. Quick question. Do we want Anthony Clark in as a panelist right now?
Let him in. Yes, please.
And who else? Who is, what is it? Kasia Kirksey? Is that anyone?
Andrew, is that one of your students?
What's the name?
Kashia, Kasia, or Kasia?
Hey, Tony.
No.
Is Jen Bond supposed to be a panelist, Thelma?
No, Keena
Okay.
Dorsey.
Good afternoon.
Keena Dorsey.
Hey, Tony.
Good
Okay.
afternoon.
What about Melvin Johnson?
No,
Okay.
no.
Then we have
Marissa, how you doing?
Hi. So
Hello.
with the panelists, Melvin and the cast is coming on early just to be in the holding room.
Is that Melvin Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. He's promoted.
Okay.
Give it a minute. Okay. What about Amara Beckett? No. What about Kasia Kirksey? Okay. Somebody A. Hyde. No. Okay. We'll wait till they join.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Will I be able to share my screen?
Mm-hmm. We'll give you that ability.
Okay, great. And I'm also going to change my name from the email address.
Okay. All right. So yes, anybody who needs to share their screen, that they're able to share it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lillian, are you going to be the one in, letting people in when it comes to this room?
Yes, me and Camille.
Okay.
Camille
Do you want me
and
to just give you? Do you want me to give you the names to look out for?
Yes, please.
Cindy Watson. Cindy, not Cindy. Is it Cindy Davis? She spelled it C-Y-N-D-E.
Is it not Davis? Because I said
Yeah, it's David. Yeah, it's Davis.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Davis. Sorry.
Yesterday, yeah.
All right.
Cindy Davis.
Yeah.
You have Melvin, which is on.
Mm-hmm.
Also Ben Guillory.
Okay.
Danny Glover.
All right.
And I think that's it. Melvin, am I missing anyone? I think that's it.
Melvin's not in the room yet. I only see not yet.
Melvin Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah, I see he's in there.
He's here.
Is he? Okay. Well,
Yeah, he's just muted.
you know what?
Yes, I'm in.
Hey, how are you today?
Oh, just fine.
Great.
Yes, I think that was it for Ben, Sydney, Danny, and I want to think Kimberly is on today.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, Light Burke should be in the, if you see Light Burke from the theater department, should also be in this room as well.
Okay.
And Edith Davis.
All right.
Dr. Berry, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Nyree.
Hi.
Hello.
So how's everyone doing? Are we ready for today? Are you as excited as I am?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm very, I mean, what an honor to have Capri here. What an honor to have Marissa and the Roby Theater Group and Melvin and Danny and Ben. Just really excited. Kina, there she is. How are you?
Oh, okay, there you go. It's like, I'm seeing them, but I don't think they can see me.
You do not. There you go. We see you. Yes, absolutely. There he is. Yes.
One sec.
One
Yeah.
sec. I see you.
I didn't realize.
How you doing?
I didn't realize the link was in the poster. I clicked the link, and all of a sudden I saw the reading of the reading that they're about to do, and I was like, oh wait, where am I? Where am I supposed to be? I found it.
You're in the right place, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi everybody. Sorry. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? So great to
Well,
see you.
thank you.
So Marissa, Kina, any questions? And Nairi, any questions? You are ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
We have the flow. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And if you want to briefly just let Capri know the flow,
Well, that'd be great.
from what we've discussed.
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Be happy to do that. President Gallagher, unfortunately, is running late, so I'll start. We're going to start on time. She wants us to go ahead and start.
Okay.
She'll join us later. She will be giving us closing remarks, and as soon as she comes in, she will also participate. So I will open it up. There will be two moderators. I'll turn it over to Dr. Nairi Berry, who's on. She will be the moderator for you, Capri. And Marissa will be hosting. Marissa will be fielding the questions for your session. So after your presentation, or Marissa, you know what to do. Nairi, you know.
And how much time do I have for the presentation exactly?
Well, we have 30 minutes, so we allow 10 minutes for questions, but do your thing. This is going to be organic today. Don't feel rushed. Do your thing. We're just elated and excited that you're here. So
I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, let it flow. So after your part, then we're going to go into part 2. We have a video transition. We are going to show the Roby Theater bumper. We also have a special presentation for Ben that was created by Andrea, who did an incredible job. That's going to transition us into part 2. Part 2 will be moderated by Kina Dorsey, hosted by Marissa Hall. And you can talk about the flow of that. Kina, you want to talk about it? You got it, right? Share with them the flow of part 2.
Sure thing. Okay, so yeah, it's gonna open up with a transition bumper of, actually, I don't know if there are 2, but I know there's like a bumper of the theater, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to be the transition, and then introduction to me. And then what I'll do is I will, greet everyone and welcome the panel, and then introduce the panel. And then I will ask to go ahead and roll the first clip. Maybe I'll give a little bit of kind of lay the ground, the layout a little bit before I do that, saying that we're going to watch some clips, and then we'll get a chance to open up for Q&A as well. And so we'll start off with a clip from the stage reading. And then so we have one recorded clip, one live scene, and then another recorded clip. And then we'll open it up and take questions, and then I can fill in some of the questions as well, and just move it around, move it along, talking about the piece and how it relates to modern day, and just kind of their thoughts on the current events, and maybe some questions about, Black Lives Matter with regards to the entertainment industry and how that has changed, and kind of questions like that, or whatever comes from the audience. So, and then we can just wrap it up. And I think Thelma
You can turn it over to me and then if the president is not on, I'll close it out. But hopefully she'll be there to do something for us. If not, I will. But keep in mind that the individuals that are in this room will be the individuals asking the questions first. They
Gotcha.
actually the panelists. Marissa is going to field the questions from individuals here. Marissa, you want them to put it in the chat, their questions?
Yes, I was
Q&A.
just gonna text Ken if she wanted me to just text her the questions, or did she want me to read them? I can put them in the chat.
You know, maybe what's the quickest and most efficient for you, Marissa?
Depending on how fast the questions are coming at me. So if they're fast, I'll probably would say a question
Yeah.
and then send you a question.
Yeah, that's what
So,
I'll say.
yes.
You know, we'll just try and manage both ways. So, you know, I'll look to the chat. And if there's one, just, you know, just go ahead and you know, yell it out and say,
Okay.
there's a question in the chat, ... It's good. We can totally, you know, bounce it back and forth.
There is a Q&A for them to put their questions in, so you don't have to read through the chat. Just tell them to place their questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
That'd be easier than
Perfect.
scrolling. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. So there you go.
So that's what you wanted us all to do then, to put our questions in the Q&A as opposed to raising our hands then?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any questions from anyone, any panelists? Again, thank you all for agreeing to participate in that capacity. We're gonna have a good time. This is gonna be organic, make it happen, do your thing.
Okay.
It's 1:33. Yes, question, Edith, you have a question? You're muted. You're muted, Edith. Are you asking? I can't hear you.
Unmute.
I'm on mute, Grandma. I'm on mute, Grandma. I wanted to know if I had missed anything because I came in late.
It's over. We had an early performance and we're just saying goodbye to everyone. So glad.
Shut up. I just never mind. That's like my classes. Okay.
You're right on time. You did.
Okay, great.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Tell me when. You all tell me when you have allowed everyone in and I'll get started.
Okay, I'm still looking for Danny Glover to show up.
No, don't worry. He'll come in and when he comes in.
We'll just let him in.
Yes.
All right.
Thelma,
Okay.
is it okay to turn our camera off until?
We changed the view so that it's speaker only. So the attendees will only be able to see who's speaking.
Awesome.
All right.
Are we ready?
Ready?
Let's do it.
Do it.
On behalf of our president, Dr. Mary Gallagher, who will join us this afternoon, I welcome you to Los Angeles City College Black Lives Matter Town Hall meeting, a candid discussion about racism in the entertainment industry and efforts made to address civil and human rights. The purpose of our town hall meeting today is twofold. You'll have an opportunity to earn flex credit, and our critical, courageous, conscious conversation today will move us closer to addressing issues that are associated with race, equity, and social justice. Today, we have very special guests, phenomenal guests. Each will be formally introduced later today in the program. We have two incredible moderators. Moderator one is Kina Dorsey from the LACC Cinema Department. Kina is an actress, director, producer, Broadway performer, and TV personality. Our second moderator is Dr. Nairi Berry, sociology instructor and chair of the African American Outreach Initiative. At this time, I must say a very special thank you to Marissa Hall. Marissa, thank you for your support of our summer series and for making today's Roby Theater partnership possible. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you do. Now let me share the format and the flow for today. There will be two parts. Part one, you'll have the opportunity to meet the awesome attorney, Capri Maddox, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Department of Civil and Human Rights. Part one will be moderated by Dr. Nairi Berry, hosted by Marissa Hall. Part two, get ready. I know you're ready. I hope that you are as excited as I am. We will really have an opportunity to enjoy a discussion and a performance by some very talented people. Part two will be moderated by Keena Dorsey, hosted by Marissa Hall. At that time, we'll have President Gallagher do closing remarks for us. I'm very excited about today, and again, very delighted that you and our guests could join us. So let's get started. Dr. Berry, you're on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It gives me great honor to introduce Capri Maddox, Executive Director of Los Angeles City Civil and Human Rights Department. Capri Maddox is the Executive Director of the newly established Los Angeles City Department of Civil and Human Rights. Mayor Eric Garcetti appointed Ms. Maddox to this position in February 2020 to address systemic racism and bias in the areas of commerce, education, and employment and housing. Under Ms. Maddox's leadership, the CHRD will combat hate crimes and level the playing field through partnerships with the Commission on the Status of Women and the Human Relations Commission, including Transgender Advisory Council. Previously, Ms. Maddox served as Senior Advisor to City Attorney Mike Feuer. In that role, she was responsible for leading special projects on behalf of elected city attorneys, such as spearheading the city attorney's business support program, creating the foster care diversion program, organizing the city attorney faith-based council, overseeing recruitment and outreach efforts, addressing key neighborhood council and city council requests, participating in criminal and civil cases, and coordinating school safety projects with Los Angeles Unified School District. During the 2018-2019 school year, Ms. Maddox served as Executive Director of Partnerships of LA Unified on a loan from the Office of the City Attorney to Southern California grantmakers. During one-year assignment, she assisted LA Unified School District in acquiring over $43 million in resources for students in need and led several equity-based initiatives. Ms. Maddox serves as the president of the Los Angeles Board of Public Works as a Mayor Villaraigosa appointee. In this role, she managed 5,000 employees and an annual budget of $1.8 billion to deliver basic infrastructure services to the city residents. Before joining the Board of Public Works, Ms. Maddox served as a deputy city attorney in the following assignments: General Counsel Group, Neighborhood Empowerment, Complex Litigation, Neighborhood Prosecutor Program, LAPD's Wilshire Station and Central Trials, Criminal Branch. Prior to her legal career, she worked as a project manager with the Los Angeles Housing Department. Ms. Maddox has a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and a Master's of Science in Public Administration from California State University, Los Angeles. She received her Juris Doctorate from Pepperdine University School of Law in Malibu, California. Ms. Maddox also completed the USC LACC Center's Minorities and Real Estate Development Program. She continues her involvement in many higher educational institutions, including mentoring students at numerous universities and serving as California State University, Los Angeles President's Council member. Ms. Maddox is also a proud member of Southern California Public Radio Board of Trustees. SCPR locally broadcasts on KPCC 89.3 FM. Ms. Maddox is a member of First AME Church, Los Angeles, where she serves in both political and social ministries. In her spare time, she serves as a youth mentor with numerous community organizations and enjoys working on public interest projects. She resides in Los Angeles County with her husband, Kerman, and 13-year-old son. LA City College, let's give Miss Maddox a warm round of applause. Let's go, Miss Maddox.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Berry. It's delighted to be here, really feel the support. And I just wanted to say to the LACC family, I am honored to be here. I know that President Gallagher will be joining us soon, but definitely had to shout her out. My husband, Kerman, actually taught at numerous community colleges, and their paths crossed many times. And I am really appreciative to Ms. Day's leadership here today with us. I, you know, really love working with young folks. I mean, initially I was concerned. I said, well, I wish I'd given you the abbreviated bio, but I'm actually glad that you guys got to hear that I really enjoy mentoring students, and I feel that our students are the future, and so we want to definitely be a resource and to be a partner with you in all that we do in the newly formed Civil and Human Rights Department. I think it is particularly important that I take some time to tell you what we're going to do in our department, and I'll be sharing our screen a little later on. But I want to be very intentional to let you know that we believe that, of course, you know, Black Lives Matter has done substantial work in the city of Los Angeles as well as our nation. And as it was mentioned, I am the mother of a teenage son. And my husband is African-American male, of course, and I really think that some of you know him. So I really wanted to let you know that I appreciate the partnership and the network and between Black Lives Matter as well as LACC to do this effort. I think the synergy and the partnership is so important. And I don't know when you guys started, but this is just absolutely amazing, and I commend it. I wanted to let you know, in honor of George Floyd, I've said many times that everyone that has their knee on your neck does not do so literally. And so I want to share some components of our department of how we want to share things. And I definitely want to thank Marissa Hall for kind of like bringing us together in this space to allow the opportunity for us to talk about other ways where our communities have been mistreated and quite frankly abused in different ways. I'm going to share my screen here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I want to talk about the Civil and Human Rights Department, and I'm hoping I can get the overview plus out for you to share the screen here. And I don't know what it looks like to you guys, but I'm hoping that you can just see the screen where we talk about the various assignments we have. So we have commission support. We have actually 3.5 commissions that we work with. And I say half because we have a transgender advisory council that works with one of our commissions, and we do amazing work there too. But we have the Commission on Civil Rights, and that commission actually gives us legal authority to bring cases against people who violate your civil and human rights in the city of Los Angeles. And it's related to commerce, and I'll explain. Commerce in most cases might be lending practices that are inequitable. For example, African Americans and Latinos spend over $500 million every year in their mortgage fees than their counterparts that are white with the same credit score. And so when you think about that disparity, and it's just basically you're turning in a lending application, but it should be based on your credit score, not the color of your skin. And this happens today in America in so many ways. We have to deal with them. Another thing that may be touching on commerce would be lending, not in addition to lending practices, would be public accommodations. And so if someone doesn't want to do business with you because of the race of your skin, you know, because of the color of your skin, your ethnicity, your background, you know, who you love, etc., we can bring cases against them for that. It could be even aging, etc. I would like to come to the campus and actually particularly speak to some of the pre-law students to kind of give you more details in that space on what the Civil Human Rights Commission can bring cases for and how they can bring them. In addition to commerce, we have employment, which is pretty self-explanatory, the hiring, discipline, firing, based on your background, as well as the other two areas where I think it's really important, education. And this is, all of these things are for private institutions. So the folks at the community college community don't have to worry about us coming there to bring cases. It's for the private sector. And it would be, for example, if someone said, you know, this private university doesn't want to admit you because of, again, something tied to your background. It could be age, race, or lifestyle. I think it's really essential for us to know that some of these are some basic rights. So we think about commerce, we think about education, when you think about employment, we need to be supported in this space, and of course housing, which is near and dear. And we know that we have so many students that are in our community college system that are experiencing homelessness, or in one way or another. It could be even, you know, the couch surfing type of housing insecurity, as well as you know, actually, you know, being on our sidewalks. You should know that I started college actually with some housing insecurity issues, and if you Google me, there's a story about how I started at Cal State LA. I showed up there with 2 suitcases of everything I owned, and I did not know that I was even admitted to college until the 3rd day, when my education opportunity program counselor reached out to me. Her name is Mary Bailey. I think she's still at Cal State LA. Texted me. I'm sorry, we didn't have text. We had pagers back then, and said, "Where are you?" It's the 3rd day of school coming in. So education is really the difference maker in my life, as well as a number of people on the campus that supported me. So for all the students that are on this call, I think it's really important to lock in to people that want to celebrate and elevate you and listen to them while you are there, because they've been doing this a long time, and they've seen a lot of people grow and go on to do wonderful things, and you will probably be one of them, particularly if you listen to them. I think when we talk about the Civil Human Rights Commission, we also have the ability to bring cases against people for violating your rights in those areas, and the violations can be up to $250,000 per violation. So we do have some teeth in our enforcement. The next area is Commission on the Status of Women. As we think about the Commission on the Status of Women, it's gender equity issues, particularly as it relates to safety, domestic violence, as it relates to hiring opportunities and pay equity. That's a big thing, because we know, even though the numbers change a little bit, you know, a woman is making 30 cents less than a male. Her male counterparts are more at any given time, even when the numbers are at their best. The other thing that I think we should focus on is the Human Relations Commission, and that commission deals with hate crimes, and hate crimes have been on the rise against all communities. Of course, African-American, in African-American community, we see a number of incidents that happen, particularly on social media. You're seeing a lot of things that are happening, and even people weaponizing the police, as seen in the Central Park incident. And hate is prevalent in America, and that's something that I think we need to deal with and to continue that fight. And I want to unfortunately reassure you that hate is not going to go away in America, regardless of who is elected this November. As mentioned, I have a middle school age son, and some of the things and hate that he's seeing and experiencing are things that even I didn't experience as a student here in Los Angeles. I think it's particularly important to know that the weaponization of policing, and you know, there's some people who put out the Karen's law to tell people that they cannot bring, you know, use the police and bring the police in to, you know, suit their biases. I think it's really important to know enough. When you think about that Central Park incident, where someone a white female called the police on African-American bird watcher. We know that there were two things that were happening there. And unfortunately, we lost George Floyd right after that incident. So we didn't really have a chance as a country to unpack it. But two things happened there. One, she knew enough to threaten an African-American male to say, I'm going to call the police on you. And then number two, she knew enough that when she did call the police, she said, it's Black man and I'm afraid for my safety, even though he had done nothing threatening to her. And she was actually the person that had, if any laws are broken, her violation of having her dog off the leash was a violation of law. So that's something that we need to keep in mind, is that hate incidents and discriminatory behaviors are of concern. But the reason I wanted to talk to you just about that for a second is she was not only someone walking in the park, she was in the banking business. And so that is why we want to be sure that we deal with discriminatory practices in so many ways, because perhaps, and I'm not saying this is her case, but people that have those discriminatory beliefs oftentimes, will have them out in their respective careers. And so just wanted to let you know that the Courts of Transgender Advisory Council we had a big event recently regarding hate crimes against that community, and we need to continue to support all communities that deal with hate incidents and hate crimes, whether it's the Jewish community, the Muslim community, all communities, immigrant populations. Our numbers are just soaring in all groups. And I just think that's something that we need to address, and particularly with the transgender community, those are some really violent things that are happening. And I think it's really important for us all to use our platforms to support that community in need in so many ways. I want to talk quickly about outreach and education. We're going to be working with our faith-based community groups, our philanthropic partners, definitely our local universities and community colleges. And we want to be sure that we work with our business community and our neighborhood councils. We'll be doing things like anti-bias training, hate crime prevention events, and of course, we have the discrimination enforcement that I spent some time talking about. Wanted to let you know that students will be a big part of this effort. We have, and we have opportunities for people to have internship opportunities with our operation, but Pepperdine School of Law will be helping us stand up our mediation program. So definitely wanted to shout them out and the students there. The other thing that I think is important is to talk about E2. It's our equity and empowerment piece. And there are three major components that I think we'll be focusing on. The policy equity lens, and running everything through the policy equity lens. If we have any policy related students on the line, I think it's important for you to know that many decisions are made in this space that affect people's lives, particularly on the local level. I've heard it said that the lower, down, as you go down ballot, and we have an election coming up, the further down the ballot you go, the more important it is for you. And I think it's really important to know what your local city council is doing and how decisions are made there. So we'll be putting things through the equity lens. When you think about COVID resources, COVID-19 testing resources that the mayor really rolled out, as well as the folks at the county, I think it's particularly important to know that when you think about the policy equity lens on that issue, did we get resources and divide them by 15 council districts? No, we took those resources and put them where they were needed. And then to see, do you need to have the internet to be able to get a test? There have been some changes there. We also have walk-up clinics because not everyone has a car. Initially it was bring your car, but not everyone has a car in Los Angeles, and particularly in some of our underserved communities. In addition, we have a population that may not be likely to have a driver's license. Could be someone of a certain age, so they say, bring your driver's license. And then of course, with our immigrant population, that's another challenge. And then the last one was, what languages are spoken when you go there. And so I think it's really essential to think about everything through the policy equity. It's food deserts, housing opportunities, and just, all the things that are, health and safety related. And of course, as it relates to, community policing to a certain extent. The next thing that I think we should focus on, and I'm only going to do 2 more of these, is upward mobility programming. And this is where I really want to lean in with our college students here. Upward mobility programming is an initiative that we have to help people get into the middle class and beyond. So it's college and career readiness, talking to people about careers in STEAM careers, opportunities to learn about financial literacy. A lot of people, most people that learn financial literacy learn from their parents. And if you're in a situation like I was, I didn't really have parental support in that space. So I had to learn it as an adult. And I think it's really important for us to lean in and show that skill set to people. And we can set them up for home ownership opportunities, how to be an entrepreneur, and other tools in the upward mobility efforts. The upward mobility efforts have led me to, have conversations with people that are really interested in providing internship opportunities to our students. Just had a call with the Lakers. They reached out just yesterday asking for if we could find resources for them to get people to volunteer in their front offices. And so that's a proposal and something that we're working on. We've just been established recently. And so we are moving forward on all fronts in this space as it relates to upper mobility programming, and would love to do more, particularly with LACC. I think the last thing I wanted to share off of this list is industry diversity metrics. And this allows people to, and then I actually use this example, and so I'll say it quickly here. We see people on their websites, it says hashtag BLM, or they have a rainbow on their corporate website. But then when you look at their payroll, you don't see that diversity. Okay, so what we've done is we created a task force. It's called Renew. It's an acronym that the mayor's office created to highlight this program, and you can find it on the website. But basically, it's actually racial equity in newly empowered workplaces that is a task force, and it's a broad coalition from people in corporate America that will address structural racism in business. And so we want to actually increase hiring for Black and Latino workers by 50%. Our real goal is 50%, but by 30% increases in employment by 2025. And so we have a number of companies that have taken the pledge to use a playbook for racial equity. And it's not just hiring, it's inclusion, it's pay equity. We've also asked particularly for 100% pay equity for Latino and African American employees in that space. And we do things for different communities in all that we serve. Our API community is touched by increase in hate crimes. And we have an event at the end of the month to support that community in this space. But basically, we want to make sure that we're clear that in the Civil and Human Rights Department, that we really believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I'll hold it there. And by the way, got a shout out from Pepperdine School of Law from Ms. Thelma Day. I really wanted to yield the floor for any questions, and I definitely want to be of support for our students. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. If you have any questions, please submit questions in the Q&A for Capri Maddox.
All right, I'm looking in the chat here, and I do see that they asked for questions to go directly into the chat, but I see Dr. Berry, and we will definitely, follow up with you on our E2 programs and how we can work together in that space. And again, the shout out to Pepperdine. So there are a couple of things that have come up over the last couple of days and weeks that I wanted to that I can share just quickly while we wait for questions to come into the chat box. We actually just recently had a re-entry event, and of course, with the COVID crisis happening, a number of people have been released, and we want to make sure that our justice-involved brothers and sisters are supported, because if we don't set them up for success, we're not setting them up at all. And I think it's really essential for us to know that some of these folks may become, LACC students, and we want to make sure that we, as a community, are all prepared prepared to assist folks in this space. And Reverend Joe Paul, deacon or elder, I forget what his official title is, but my friend forever. But he's over at LACC, and he did a fabulous job putting together an amazing panel for us in that regard. So there's President Gallagher joining us. Super grateful to be here and to see her. And I definitely gave you regards earlier. But Kerman, my husband, sends regards as well. And I appreciate, all that you do. You guys are difference makers, and I would just want to help the people that help the people in this role. Are there any questions for me?
Yes, I do have a question that did come in. It says, I don't know, Kenya, if you want to take this or if you want me to read it, but it does say, I noticed that people are trying to treat the symptom instead of the root of the problem. What do you think is the root of this problem?
Okay, so I'm assuming injustices?
Yes.
Inequities, that's what I'm thinking. So yes, I'm with you 100%. And, like, you could talk to 5 different people and get 5 different answers of what the root is. But basically, when you think about, slavery in general, we go way, way back, it was all about economics and being sure that we kind of have a working population, and particularly one that we could treat inferior, and to feel comfortable in ourselves in our ways about this. And I think it's particularly important for us to know that I think it's still to a certain extent about economics. As you know, a number of us are now going to college, graduating, getting jobs, even in STEM. And African Americans and Latinos, for example, make 20% less than their counterparts with a bachelor's degree. And it's an argument that I was sharing with USC just last week to tell them that you can have 2 people graduate from your wonderful institution, and guess what? Same thing with LACC. If depending on your name or the color of your skin in particular, on that diploma, associated with that diploma, you will make less money. And I think that as institutions of higher education, people should be outraged that you can invest in 2 students sit side by side and have that inequity happen. And as you know too, we want to, because of my work with LAUSD as well, I wanted to be sure that we didn't create a population of the working class only, and certain people that have a certain skin tone or come from a certain background will be forced to be the working class population to deliver the food to your house, to drive you around in an Uber or Lyft. We want to be sure that everyone has an opportunity to do what they wish to do, and if they wish to work as essential workers, that's fine. I happen to go to LAUSD school. LAUSD school was Fairfax High, for example. My guidance counselor told me that I was not college material. And as time goes on, this is a story that a lot of African Americans and Latinos say, oh, same thing. And sometimes people graduated a lot later than me, like as recently as within the last 5 years for the same thing. What was it about me that would encourage that guidance counselor, it was Caucasian, to say that to me? And again, we need to make sure, I still believe at the root of it, it's all about economics, which is why when in Leimert Park or other areas where African American dominated, the property values were not growing at a rate they're growing at now. But again, once there became a need and an influx of people from diverse other populations, then all of a sudden the value of the properties, can soar. And so I really believe this is a deeper conversation, but I think it's all about the economics, from slavery, capturing, and really having control and dominance to have a superior class, particularly as it relates to the economics. That's really what I think it is. Thank you for that question. Very, very thoughtful. I hope I answered.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Was it very
Yes. In regards to the internship opportunities, are you looking at both paid and unpaid opportunities, or is that initiative more about immersive experiences?
So I'm glad you asked. I have been reaching out to philanthropic groups. I think I have maybe 2 paid positions that are in our budget. By the way, our budget has not been funded yet, and we'll be going to one series of meetings starting on Monday at 11 o'clock at City Hall. It'll be on Zoom, of course. But I think it's really important for us to know that I do have a couple of positions that are in our budget for paid internships. And I've asked philanthropy on one of my other slides. I've actually asked our philanthropic partners to fund these programs because I'll tell you why. Communities that are underserved oftentimes have people that are in school and have to make a choice between working at, and I don't want to call anybody out, Target, instead of their field. They may be studying international affairs, but they can only, have Target on their resume because that's what they need to pay the rent and pay the bills and help to support their parents and their families. I think for us to create a platform and an opportunity for those students that are working and living in our communities and that are affected by discriminatory and hate, program, discriminatory practices, as well as being, people who are commonly victims of hate crimes. I want those people to be able to serve in paid positions in our operation. And it's particularly sensitive to me because I wasn't able to work for the city for free early on. And in 1992, I had an opportunity to work as a student professional worker. It was a paid position, just a little bit above minimum wage, but it was good enough. It was a position that I could take and to learn things and to have the platform and to have the resume, to even, have a lot of the roles that I've had the opportunity to have. And I think that I don't want to walk through a door and close it behind me. So it is particularly important for me to be able to have avenues and ways for our students, particularly our first generation students, to be able to serve in our department in a paid capacity and give them a priority. I'll just end by saying this: there is no shortage of affluent kids from the West Side that are Caucasian that would love to have civil and human rights on their resume. And we open our department to everyone that is willing to serve, and we have a diverse group of people that are serving. But I am particularly interested in making sure that we have people with lived experiences from our communities serving in the civil and human rights department. So that's a conversation we can have offline. And I've, like I said, we have a number of requests that are coming in as it relates to opportunity for us to raise resources. I've even reached out to the California Endowment and some other entities, and I'll be doing more of that to fight for more room for our students to serve. And AmeriCorps, I'm not tied into AmeriCorps yet. I actually was AmeriCorps legal fellow when I worked at Betzedek Legal Services. It's a nonprofit, a free legal aid clinic. And so I do believe in the AmeriCorps program, but I will definitely reach out to them. I think that's a fabulous idea. I know that USC is going to send us some paid interns this year. And if there are any, just for the staff at LACC, if there are any ways where we can use the name and the brand of Civil and Human Rights Department to participate in grant opportunities to specifically support your students, I'm all on board for that too. Any other questions for me?
Yes.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was reading something from the neighbor. Thank you so much, Colette, and the Neighborhood Congress. So I really appreciate our neighborhood councils, and I hope we have more students and from LACC to be involved in that space too, is helping to grow policy leaders in our town. Yes, Ms. Thelma. Who asked the question? Was someone asking?
Okay, yes, this is Marissa.
Marissa.
How often are there anti-bias training offered? Do you provide training to the campus?
So that's something that is in my budget package. We actually want to be a receptacle of, so if we have school partners like our colleges, universities, as well as folks within the city family, and definitely our neighborhood councils. I know for sure we're going to probably have resources for our neighborhood councils, but we want to make sure that that space is open to us. I want to let you know that we are building our offices. And part of that, we actually have a John Lewis Conference Center that's going to be built. It's going to be right underground of City Hall. And we're breaking ground on it in just a few weeks, and it should be done by spring, by the time we're probably allowed to all get back together again. And so we definitely want to have a place and a venue there, but it would be our honor to see, depending on what happens with our budget, because I did put that in our budget as well, to be able to come out to our local colleges and universities to share the expertise of folks with the anti-bias training, because we're gonna do a lot of work. We definitely kind of went back a whole generation on dealing with hate and inequities in our country. And so we're really eager to lean all in on this for all communities at this time. So it's a very good question. Thank you for it. I think there is another question. If someone can read it to me,
Okay, sure.
appreciate it.
Okay, let's see. It says, looking at what's going on around the country with regards to racism, how would you speak to this new white nationalist movement?
Yes, so very good question. And of course, some of the things that have happened, I guess, like in the last 30 days in America, and particularly in thinking about the president of the United States saying stand by to white supremacist groups, was very alarming. And gun sales have shot up all over the country, particularly here locally. And it's really disturbing, and there may be people who don't feel safe. I know that I have friends that are saying the day after the election, they're not even gonna go out because they're afraid for their safety in Los Angeles. And that is really disturbing. Or some people that really feel like, oh, maybe this is the time that I need a weapon. And I think that, for an entity or a party that wants to tout the law and order message, it is really disturbing that they have encouraged people like the Proud Boys and other entities to step up and to, stand by, and, encouraging or not denouncing people that, walk around with AK-47s in, openly carried in town squares. And so I think, dealing with the white supremacy and this movement is, we have the Human Relations Commission has an arm, and we have an expert in this space, Jumana Saba, that works on counterterrorism in all walks, but particularly has done a great deal of research and speaking engagements and anti-terrorism work in this space under the Human Relations Commission that is within our department. So I just want you to know that we are interested in making sure that we stamp this out. And I think the other thing that this space gives us is, I think people's eyes are open to it. I think you kind of seemed a little too radical if you were bringing it up years ago, but now that they saw it on prime time just a few weeks ago, and it's kind of in our face, it's not just the Anti-Defamation League and other groups that are bringing this up on a regular basis. And so I appreciate the fact that we have the opportunity. And the other thing that I think is really sensitive here is it gives us an opportunity to know that they are coming for all of us. And when you think about what they were chanting in Charlottesville, the Jews will not replace them. And when they were saying that, they didn't have hoods on their head. Back in the day when people were saying anti-racist things, they had the decency, with their fires and all, they had the decency to cover their faces. But now that we have social media, 24-hour, television, these guys are just out there emboldened to say what they want to say. And I think it is really key to know that we're all in this together. And when hate comes, it comes for all of us. When Donald Trump came down the escalator, out of his mouth, the first thing he was saying is, talking about the immigrant community, et cetera. So when you think about discrimination, it's not just one group over another, or, oh, that's just the API community or the Muslim community. It's all of us that the white supremacist groups are coming from. So I hope this gives us opportunity not only to put resources to fight it, but to stand united as people of color in other entities, other groups, underserved communities in our country. So we're all in this together. So I thank them for that. Any other?
Thank you. Yes, there's another question. The city of Baltimore has sued Bank of America for racially biased home lending practices during the foreclosure crisis, claiming that they lost tax revenue because of foreclosures, and that the Federal Justice Department investigated some banks and reached settlements with them. Do you know if the city of Los Angeles done something similar?
Yes, the city attorney's office actually sued Wells Fargo for some other banking issues as it relates to opening fraudulent checking accounts. But that may be an area where I think the city attorney's office, could do more in that space. And if the Civil and Human Rights Department opens up a case where we think it's, too big for us to handle, we do have a mechanism. I actually worked in the section complex litigation where we could bring cases against corporations for unfair, illegal business practices. And the penalties for these violations are $2,500 per day per violation, which can give a corporation exposure into the tens of millions of dollars. And I think the Wells Fargo case was over like $50 million. I think it might have been $60 million in exposure. And I think it's really important for us to know, for the banking community to know that we are paying attention. And if we get information where there is, a violation where we think a $250,000 fine, which is the max we can bring forward, is not enough, we will reach out and work with our city attorney, our attorneys general, et cetera. And of course, as some of you know, I still have some ties to Mike Fuhrer in the city attorney's office, and he's been a champion for justice for many years, particularly when we talk about discriminatory practices against the underserved population. So thank you for that question.
Okay, we have one more last question. Our last question would be, since Paul Robeson, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, and Dr. Martin Luther King were members of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, how can fraternities and sororities get involved with assisting community projects?
Love that question. And the Divine Nine is welcome in our house. We are particularly excited about an opportunity for us to connect. And if I believe that we have Donisha Beavers that is on the line. She and if somebody could actually even make her a panelist so that she can put something in the chat, she put our website in the chat. I'd really appreciate it, Donisha Beavers, if she could identify herself or to be sure. There she is. Okay, great. Can you put our website in the chat? I definitely want to be sure. Yes, she's representing the Deltas, but I think it's important for you to know that we definitely, thank you so much, Reverend Donisha. I think it's really important for us to know that we need all hands on deck in this space, particularly when we talk about our upward mobility programming. Getting people into the middle class and beyond is really important to us. And I think the Divine Nine can help us in a substantial way. As we think about opportunities to serve our communities as it relates to industry diversity metrics and other programs that we're doing with the equity and empowerment, I really could use the support from those communities. And I know we have different subsections. There are groups of medical professionals that might help us with COVID-19 response, mental health professionals that can help us with, suicide prevention. I know we're going to need a lot of support in our communities as it relates to some of these issues, efforts on homelessness and housing. Of course, we know the populations that are most likely to be homeless here in Los Angeles. And so the Divine Nine, like I said, is very, very welcome. And Donisha, could you put the website in the chat for everyone to see, so they know how to link into us and to connect with us for services? Civil and Human Rights .lacity.org. So very grateful for that question. And again, we hope that people can stay in touch with us. Right now, because we're working off-site, our phone number isn't really it isn't really, the fastest way to reach us, but online, if possible, is a way where we can really connect with folks. So I think that's it. That was your last question, right? It's just been an honor to be with you all.
Yes.
Can I
thank
say
you.
just a few words, Executive Director Maddox?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
so happy to be here. I'm so sorry I missed the very, very beginning of this to welcome you here. I just want you to know I'm so excited that you were appointed to this position. I believe that you are the perfect person to help to shepherd this work in our city, and I'm so excited. I do want you to say hello to Kerman for me. And I want to say that I see a very important partnership. I think we may be able to be an initial anchor institution for you. We are establishing a race, equity, and social justice center at LA City College. It will be a physical space that will work very, very hard to make sure that not only do all Black lives matter, because they do, but that everyone who comes to LA City College feels as if they belong. That's really, really crucial for us. Upward mobility, economic mobility, social mobility, those are really the undergirds for the work that we'll be doing going forward. We don't have endless money, but we have some targeted resources for some areas. And we have a big, big push on internships and apprenticeships. And these would be paid internships and apprenticeships. And I see us doing some internships and apprenticeships with you in race, equity, and social justice areas. And I see our department chair in social sciences, Tony Clark. So listen, we're going to be doing something very, very specific, because someone needs to step up and do something definitive, and we're ready.
That's right. We're ready to make a difference. Thank you so much. And Chairman Clark, I look forward to working with you in the future. And I'm very grateful for the mayor and city council for creating this opportunity for us to serve. And they'd be elated to know that we are working together. I know that Councilman Wesson, as well as Councilman Cedillo, really pushed and led this effort for us to have more equity in the city of Los Angeles. In February, I was appointed. So even before, all things happened, that was back in the olden days. It seems like it was many years ago, just a few months ago, but I'm truly delighted to serve for such a time as this. And I'm hoping that I can serve with our LACC family in the future. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Ms. Hall, for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Maddox. We're so very happy to have you. You were awesome, and we too look forward to the continued relationship and working with you. Now we're going to transition to part 2, the moment that we have all been waiting for. Before we do that, we definitely would like to again say thank you to the co-founders of the Roby Theater, Ben Guillory and also Danny Glover. We have a bumper that we're going to show our appreciation for the partnership. Will you please show the bumper at this time?
My name is Detective Murtaugh. Name's Goodall. Sergeant Murtaugh, this is Sergeant Reed.
I'm Chaos and he's Mayhem.
Moses
Hody, is that you?
Camille, will you please try it again? It's the Roby Theater piece, not the Danny Glover piece. Thank you. Awesome, thank you. At this time, I would like to turn the town hall meeting over to moderator Kina Dorsey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much. It's an honor to be here on behalf of LACC and to be with all of you today. This is a real treat to be a part of this Black Matters Town Hall and to have this opportunity to present this phenomenal guest panel. Not only will we have a sneak peek at some of the scenes performed by the Roby Theater Company stage reading of Revolutionary Genocide, but we are going to hear from some of them and have a dialogue about this historical moment in the play and its relevance in today's context. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's esteemed guest. I will read them off individually as they hopefully come to view for you. Okay, so we'd like to welcome the esteemed actor, film director, political activist, and co-founder of the Roby Theater Company, humanitarian, and a list that can go on for days, Mr. Danny Glover. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm here, but I can't seem to start my video. Let me see what I got here. I cannot start my video, okay? But I'm hearing voice. This is Danny Glover.
Okay.
I'm hearing voice. I don't know what's happening with my computer. Unfortunately, I'm in the airport, about to catch an airplane down to Los Angeles. So I could be with you as long as I can while I'm sitting at the gate right here. All right.
Well, thank you so much for being with us and sticking us into your schedule. We really appreciate you on the go, and we'll take whatever time you have to give us today. So we'll try and get you before your flight arrives.
Well, my flight is okay. All right, then let's go.
Okay.
And go invite the other guests we could have. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you so much. Welcome. I'd also like to introduce the highly revered veteran actor, theater producer, stage and screen director, activist, and co-founder of the Roby Theater. You've seen his distinguished face in a long list of movies and theater credits, Mr. Ben Guillory. Welcome, Ben. You there? Can you say hello?
I am here. I'm on the screen as well. And Danny, just a heads up, your volume, if you could turn that up, because you're at Messe Voce kind of there. All right.
Thank you. Yes. All right.
Hello.
Welcome, Ben. All right, we also have the revolutionary actor playwright, Mr. Melvin Ishmael Johnson. His plays have been produced on stages and theaters across the U.S. His powerful works have given voice to iconic historical figures such as Marcus Garvey, J. Edgar Hoover, and of course his new works that we are learning about today with Mr. William Patterson and Paul Robeson. Welcome, Melvin. Hello, Melvin. Can you say hello?
Hello, glad to be here.
Welcome. We are pleased to have you. Thanks for joining us. And we also have as a part of the cast, the mega multi-talented Miss Cindy Wayne Davis, who is a seasoned professional entertainer, singer, actress, producer, and vocal coach. She has performed with legendary artists such as Marvin Gaye, Ray Charles, Barry White, Joe Cocker, Donna Summers, Stevie Wonder, Bette Midler, Billy Davis Jr., and Diana Ross, to name a few. Whew. Welcome. Sydney, can you say hello?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm just loving this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We are honored and privileged to have you all. And we are just going to get right into it so that we can get Mr. Glover onto his flight. So we're going to open up today. We have a compilation of video clips from the staged reading. And I don't know if we'll be able to get a live reading, but we'll go ahead and start with the first clip of a stage reading that was done recently, a virtual stage reading. Which is just magnificent. I got a chance to see it. And by the way, I believe all of the viewers will have access to the stage reading in its entirety later on today, but we are going to tease you today with a few excerpts. This first one is, I guess it's the address of the petition to the committee. Okay, roll back, please. Can we roll tape?
A century has passed since Frederick Douglass pointed out that the relations subsisting between the white and black people of this country is the central question of the age. And a half a century since Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois proclaimed that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Today we see that the prophetic truth of those statements has grown 1,000-fold, and that the time has come when the question of the age and the problem of the century must be resolved. We in America do not forget that it is on the backs of millions of black people that the wealth of America has been acquired. And we are resolved that it shall be distributed in an equitable manner among all of our children. Whoever treats my people as equal to all other people is my comrade. Who does not is my enemy. We will not suffer the genocide that might be visited upon us. We are prepared to fight to the death for our rights.
I am unapologetically a socialist. I do not believe that a few people should control the land and wealth. Democratic socialism, if you will, it should be a collective ownership. The movement for free America cannot be stopped, for it is an inseparable part of the movement of a free world. Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing. It never has and never will." His words are true today as they were 100 years ago. Power respects only the organized might of the people imbued with an indomitable will to freedom and equality of opportunity.
For our people, there is a rapidly growing awareness that despite all of our differences, it is necessary that we become unified. A unified people requires a unified leadership. And let there be but one requirement made without exception, that the Black leadership and every man and woman in that leadership place the interest of our people and the struggle for those interests above all else. So in the end, our culture comes from our people. We have an obligation to take it back to our people, to make them understand that in fighting for our cultural heritage, we fight for peace. Peace in a world where we all can walk in complete dignity. The artist must elect to fight for freedom or slavery. I have made my choice.
Wow, thank you. That is powerful. And how you emoted that over Zoom, I felt like I was in a Broadway theater, or some venue where I was transported there. Thank you so much for that. It's fascinating to learn and hear about these petitions and the actions of Paul Robeson and Patterson behind this. This is a question for any one of you, Melvin, Ben, or Mr. Glover. What was the inspiration behind telling this story, and why is it important now? Why today?
Well, the inspiration for telling the story is, I think it's a lot of misconceptions about the early life of Paul Robeson, W.E.B. Du Bois. When people think about Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois, they think about the Harlem Renaissance, the Emperor Jones, things that was happening in the 20s. But the most important part of these individuals' life was the latter part of their life. And very few people knew about William Patterson, who was an outstanding lawyer who was involved in so many of the important historical legal cases, like the Scottsboro case, Willie McGee in Mississippi, et cetera, like that. And so he was sort of left out of history, William Patterson. And very few people knew about the petition in December 17, 1951, that these two individuals took before the UN, William Patterson in Paris and Paul Robeson in New York at the same time. And and then one other important thing is that they also laid the foundation for what I think we need now to deal with this wealth gap. We need to have a serious discussion about reparations. That's one thing. And then the other thing is that these individuals in the late 30s, early 40s, they put a plan together for a national Black theater company. And we need that now. We allow that to be lost in history. And they understood that we needed this to glue all of these Black communities together all over the United States. And that's exactly what we need now. And they laid the theory for it.
Just to follow up on Melvin's thoughts, the age in which these extraordinary men, among so many extraordinary people at that point in time, whether it's the movement for women's suffrage, Emma Goldman, so many great voices at that time. You had A. Philip Randolph, who was also a socialist and committed socialist. So the idea of a different kind of world presented themselves, was available to that through the radicalism that took place at the moments in time. The Eugene Debs, the great labor leader from Terre Haute, Indiana, was jailed for sedition because he opposed World War I in 1919. See, he was jailed for that, he was in prison for that. So there was a great challenge to the system itself. We don't understand that the system only translates itself into something else because of challenge. Power never concedes except on demand. As we have said, it never has in well since. But the idea of radicalism, the radicalism that brought about the New Deal, it did not come because also all of a sudden President Roosevelt had an idea about the New Deal, even though the New Deal in its original formation did not include Black people, Black women who were maids, but as all this said, what it was came from people going on strike. From in our city, in San Francisco, where I'm born, the great story of Harry Bridges, the socialist labor leader for ILWU, the role that he played in shutting down the docks, where the government had to send out a National Guard. The federal government had to send out National Guard because of what happened. Power conceives of demand, it never diminishes you. It always tries to diminish you, but it never conceives on demand. So this period, an extraordinary period in 1939, with Paul Robeson and W.D. Bois formed the National Council on African Affairs, anticipating that there were going to be struggles for African decolonization and African liberation after World War II. Those are the kind of movements that we have. There's an incredible amount of internationalism in there. And we have to be able to challenge that. The de-radicalization of our expression has been what has happened over the last part of the 20th century into the 21st century. That's why those young people are out in the street. They're calling about Tiana. Talking about George. They're talking about all these people, but they're out on the street because they've been trained by a system of accommodation. That's what is happening. That is happening in this country. And I think that's what we have to think about in terms of that. It's all right to have the first this, the first that, the first person to do this, the first woman to do this, the first male black person to do this. But the most important thing is that how does it look like in the whole spectrum of people, justice, and that's what Dr. King like. We have, as we see ourselves right now, the highest number of people who are of African descent and people of color who are most affected by the COVID pandemic. We have to understand that because it's systemic in a way. And in order you tear down the systemic elements of that, that's the only way that you have really changed. They understood that clearly. So they were willing to adopt different kind of methodologies and different ideas and different theology methodologies around this, or political ideas around it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And so plainly put, thank you for that. I will toss here to the Q&A. We have a question from one of the attendees. Up to the time of the Civil Rights Revolution, social movements and change were spearheaded primarily by an older generation of scholars, like Paul Robeson, W.E.D. Du Bois, Dr. King, A. Philip Randolph. Today, however, a young generation of Black Lives Matter activists are like those others, are risking their lives in pursuit of social justice for Black and other marginalized people. Do you believe that this group of fearless activists will ultimately prevail in helping to create a more justice society? So that ties in line with what Mr. Glover was saying. This younger, basically the question is, do we feel this younger generation of Black Lives Matter activists will ultimately prevail in helping to create more justice society?
I think, yes, of course. It's undoubtedly a very, very positive note, simply because they're the future. This younger group is the future. I have to stop for a minute and just shout out to Edith Davis. Hello, Edith. And Leith Burke. Brother Leith, so good to see you. And hello, everyone else. President Gallagher, thank you for having us. And there's so much to talk about. There's so much ground that has been covered. But specifically, the answer to that question is, of course, because they are the future and they have taken on the responsibility. How could they not, given the lay of the land, what's going on here in this country from the top through to the authorities who wantonly murder us. And this is what Mel's play speaks to 70 years ago. The genocide document was presented to the United Nations and to the United States and to the Paris Peace Conference 70 years ago. So this is all a continuance. And even Patterson, and Paul, and Eslanda, Paul's wife, and all of them, Dr. Du Bois, etc., from their very youthful days were always progressive in their thinking and in their fight against the injustices. And as they all became more socially conscious and figuring out how to work and to do and to fight the good fight, that carried over into their age, into Dr. Du Bois, 95 years old, Paul, 73, and even though he was ill at the end, and Patterson. And there's a book out now by Isabella Wilkerson, who wrote The Warmth of Other Suns. She has a book out now called Caste, C-A-S-T-E. Breaks all of that down in such clarity. The whole idea of the caste system and what the attorney was speaking about, finances, and it goes back to finances, and finances translate to free labor, and what was the free labor in this country for so long that was this country is built on. The foundation of this country is built on that free labor, which was us in slavery. So I would suggest, her book is such a revolutionary, but not, because it's not really news. Just a small example of what's the information. And I always thought I was pretty well read, and of course, being a Black man in America, I was aware of things. I was not aware of this, that in 1933, Adolf Hitler, as Chancellor of Germany, sent over attorneys, scientists, and other researchers to the United States to study racism, segregation in this country, to bring back consultation and advice how to deal with the Jewish population in Germany. Now, he came here to study what was going on with us, to take that back and use that. Not only did that happen, but the information that they took back, they witnessed such atrocities. Lynching was pervasive. The litigation against us was pervasive. They took back information and counseled him not to use some of the means that they witnessed because it was too brutal. Now go figure that. Too brutal. The Nazis thought that back then. Okay, so, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on.
Yeah, it could go on, and indeed it is still going on. Thank you for that. Which
also,
yes.
I'd like to state response in relationship to that question about the Black Lives Matter being a young people's movement, which is a great movement. But we also have to keep in mind that behind Dr. King, well, you had also young people, these student nonviolent coordinating committees like that. And then the Black Panthers, they were young people in terms of laying the foundations for movements. So I just wanted to get that in.
Yes, absolutely. What is the saying? The youth will lead us into the light, or whatever. That is definitely the case. They are forging, and I couldn't be prouder of them for it. Which brings me, one of the just really poignant moments in the stage reading was when the case was stated and placed. The charges was laid before the committee, which you can see eerily reminiscent similarities of what was being charged in 1951 to what is happening in 2020. So I'd like to toss to that tape so that we can see that moment, that historical moment before the committee. Can we roll tape, please, on our second clip?
Finally, we shall offer proof that a conspiracy exists in which the government of the United States,
its Supreme Court,
its Congress,
its executive branch, as well as the various state, county, and municipal government, consciously effectuate policy which result in the crime of genocide being consistently and constantly practiced against the Black people of the United States.
We want the General Assembly to know of Willie McGee.
Framed on perjury testimony and murdered in Mississippi.
Because the Supreme Court of the United States refused even to examine vital new evidence proving his innocence.
But we also wanted to know of the two Negro children, James Lewis Jr., 14 years old, and Charles Trudell, only 15 years old, of Natchez, Mississippi, who were electrocuted in 1947 after the Supreme Court of the United States refused to intervene.
We want the General Assembly to know of the martyred Marksville 7, who died in Virginia's electric chair for a rape they never committed, in a state that has never executed a white man for that offense.
But we wanted to know 2 of the 8 Negro prisoners who were shot down and murdered on July the 11th, 1947 at Brunswick, Georgia, because they refused to work in a snake-infested swamp without boots.
We shall inform the Assembly of the Trenton Six.
Of Paul Washington.
The Daniels cousins.
Jerry Newsom.
Wesley Robert Wells.
Rosalie Ingram.
Of John Derrick.
Of Lieutenant Gilbert.
Of the Columbia, Tennessee destruction.
The Freeport slaughter.
The Monroe killings.
All important cases which Negroes have been framed on capital charges or have actually been killed.
But we want it also to know of the typical and less known.
Of William Brown, Louisiana farmer, shot in the back and killed when he was out hunting on July 19th, 1947, by a white game warden, Charles Ventrell, who casually announced his unprovoked crime by saying, "I just shot a nigger. Let his folks know." The game warden was not even charged with the crime.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence is clear and overwhelming.
Here's what we want to help repair the damage.
Free health care for the descendants of the chattel slaves of America, with the long-range goal of health care for all.
Free education for the descendants of the chattel slaves of America, with the long-range goal of education for all.
A national Black theater company based upon,
by the descendants of the chattel slaves of America,
for the descendants of the chattel slaves of America,
about the descendants of the chattel slaves of America,
near the descendants of the chattel slaves of America.
A one-time agreed upon stimulus cash payment to the descendants of the chattel slaves of America.
We not only ask for justice, but for repentance, recompense, and reparations.
Incredible. That just blows my mind. I'm thinking Trayvon Martin, all of these things. So how are these times, what's different now? I mean, how is today's lynchings, how is that different from these lynchings now? Or is it different in your view?
I don't think there is much difference, because we are still suffering. The way they're lynching Black men now, I mean, they're stepping, the law enforcement is stepping on his neck until he can't breathe. Our ancestors got a rope around their neck and hung on a tree. So how different is it? It's not much difference. We still have so many names that we can recall, and I think it is important for us to recall these names. I love the research that Melvin did. I think those of us in the cast, we all learned something. And I think it honors us to say their name, to remember, because there hasn't been a lot of change. There has been some changes. I mean, Martin Luther King had the dream of a little white boy and white girl being able to go to the movie theater together, restaurants together. We have that, but in the global scheme of it, there's not a big enough change. And so, you know, when we first did the reading of this play, and when I heard the back and forth of Robinson and Patterson, and we still have so many people fighting today, and that's what came to me as a songwriter. We're still fighting, and we cannot give up the fight. We're weary, we're tired. Trayvon Martin, I mean, if it had been flipped, if that was a little white boy, and if George Zimmerman had been a black man, we know it would have been a different outcome. You know, if Brianna had been a white girl.
Yes.
And would we be having this conversation? No, because they would have treated her differently, and we know that. So not enough change, but we got to keep fighting for change after change after change.
Thank you for that. Agreed. So that moment just also brings up the topic of reparations. You know, what we were asking for then is not far off. I think things like healthcare, education, payment, things like that. Is there still a legitimate cause to ask for reparations? I think Spike Lee may brought it to national attention with 40 Acres and a Mule in the 90s, but now it seems taboo. But is this something we should actually really legitimately revisit? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Native American population, the atrocities that were done, that was truly genocide.
Yes.
There have been a small effort at giving back reparations to the Native American population that is remaining. The Jewish population, because of the Holocaust, has been afforded reparations. Japanese Americans that were interned in concentration camps or internment camps, semantics, right, have been afforded reparations. Small. All of this is very small stuff we're talking about, but formal reparations. We have not. And because the conversation is a rabbit hole for this government, you go down that rabbit hole and you have to usurp the whole country because of what has happened. Again, the wealth of this country is built on the backs of Black people. Everything we touch has been substantially labored, worked by us. The foundations of large corporations, talk about insurance companies, and I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it's enough to say that there is so much that we have touched, and the conversation doesn't even know where to start. All of Washington, D.C. was built by us. Just about all of Washington, D.C. was built by us. The floor plan of the streets to the monuments there. We are the ones that put that up.
To the White House.
To the White House. Again, you know, and it goes on, and we keep discovering because we are so ingrained in this culture. And yes, so to answer the question in the short, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, please. Yeah, I would just like to chime in on reparations also, because I think it's very important to have a serious discussion about reparations, who owe reparations. I like to look at starting with what's happening during the Reconstruction period. I think that's the starting point for me. And then also keep in mind that I feel that not only the federal government of the United States of America owe the descendants of chattel slaves of America for reparations, but also the Native Americans. Keep in mind that the Native Americans also was involved with the slave trades of our people when you talk about these 10 civilized tribes. And don't forget about the Mormons. The Mormons was also involved with reparations of our people. But we start off with the federal government. And then keep in mind what I talked about early. If we don't come up with a structure like Du Bois and Robeson Patterson and all of them was talking about with this national Black theater company to glue our community together, we wasting our time talking about individual reparations in a capitalistic society, especially where we exist today. Because capitalism is an evolving entity. And where we live at now, especially just say Los Angeles, capitalism have evolved to what you call the dual ethnic economic communities, where you got each ethnic group control the ethnic life of their communities and also exist in the shopping mall community. But our people right now only exist in the shopping mall community. We need to straighten all of these things out, and we need to put this together because reparation is definitely coming. And the Black theater have a very important part. It's been almost 100 years and we haven't been able to put that Black theater company together. Something is wrong. We should look at that. All of that is tied into reparations.
Thank you. And that would lead me to.
I want to say something about.
Oh, you're still there.
Because this, I didn't, my plane is still what's coming, but I just wanted to give some sort of context. Because we have to talk about history in a sense. And where
Tough to hear you, Danny.
It's hard to just talk about, use the term reparations without talking about, can you hear now?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the historic context of what we live in today, we live in a system which has been designed as it fosters the wealth of a very few people who own most of the world, right, at this particular point in time. And we're in a situation in the world, because Dr. King in his 1964 speech, accepted the Nobel Peace Prize, said he lives in the world house. So all of us who were involved in African liberation and liberating all people were conscious of the fact that we were not just African Americans here, and that our needs were paramount, yes, but we had to have a connection with what is happening with exploited people in the rest of the world. And that's part of the idea around it. What does reparations look like? Does reparation look like, and reparation in terms of justice, does that look like rebuilding a school system, a public education system that is on the virtue of collapse, that is being privatized, you know? Was that reparation as it's individualized or collective in a sense in rebuilding our communities, in ideas around affordable housing, and ideas around creation, real job creation, and job creation, which is fundamentally basic to a working people working and doing things who enhance their own humanity through work. Where do we begin to talk about reparations from that particular point of time? Where do we begin to talk about reparations in terms of a prison system, an incarceration rate that has replaced, as our sister Michelle Alexander says, the new system of control. That's a system of control. There are billions of them. There are millions of African Americans around here. I mean, they're African Americans are millionaires. Are we here to create more capitalists, or are we able to create another system of engagement, of living, building community, not only internally with this here in this country, but also with the rest of the world, the rest of the exploited people in the world. We look at a world where 40% of the population of the world lives on less than $2 a day. That's real. We have to gain control and have some sort of control over not over our food ourselves. What is happening to the structures which define who eats and who doesn't eat, who gets educated and who doesn't get education? Those are the kind of conversation that has to be. If we're going to be a leading force in the world in terms of reparative justice, reparations, then we have to talk not only essentially about the plight of African Americans, but what is happening to other people in the world as well. So I think that's important. How do we define reparation in peace? And Dr. King defined peace as not simply that the cessation of hostility, but the presence of justice. Where do we stand on our feet and standing and promoting and standing for justice? And I think when we talk about reparation from that vantage point, the context has to be a much larger context than I think often the limitations that have been placed on it. Yeah, those people are talking about it now. Yes, because there's more information available. Yes, because there's a group that's talking about that. But how we talk about reparation is instrumental in terms of not only we deal with the issues of climate change, which ain't a joke. Who are the ones who are most affected by climate change and global warming in this country? Poor people and people of African descent and people of color. Those are real. How does reparation fit into that as well? You know, in the toxic places where the beef is grown and chicken is grown and hogs are grown. How does that deal with reparation? How does it deal with a reparations from the standpoint that African Americans are most likely to get amputations in places like Mississippi and Alabama, not the new technology that helps them save their limbs, their arms, their legs. Where does reparation fit into that? I'm going to have to get off. My plane is boarding right now. But that's a very, when we talk about reparation, there's a context in which we have to I believe, have to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glover, for that very passionate, and thank you for your time. Yes, it's absolutely agreed. A systemic issue, and there is power in solidarity and really digging deep and diving deep to really look at how we, what we're asking for and what needs to be done. I'd just like to turn to the chat here, and we do have a couple of questions from the theater department. So there is a question which also was part of the petition for reparations. It relates to that, and the question is, how do we move the power of these kids in the streets into the seats of a Black theater? What do we as storytellers need to bring to bring them in? How do we get those young Black storytellers in the theater? Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
Dr. Du Bois said that theater should be about us, for us, by us, and near us, for the obvious reasons. People come to the theater mostly to see reflections of themselves, often, mostly in a higher form, in a perfected form, to escape a kind of reality, and to see what the possibilities might be. For young people, the more we tell that story, the more they will come and take part. And take part. Be interested in what we're doing, and interested in specifically what Roby Theater Company, our whole consciousness is about social consciousness. This is what drives the Roby Theater. Roby, Paul Robeson's nickname, his consciousness, his idea of the art form is what inspired the Roby Theater Company and drives it to write stories about the global Black experience, not just national, but global Black experience, because we are everywhere and have been everywhere and have been part of just about every experience. So right now, I mean, given the pandemic, the theater nationally is basically on hold. And it's safe to assume that nothing will be back to any kind of normalcy until mid-2021, given how things work, given that let's face it, the theater is not a priority in most people's lives. This is just a fact. They're a priority in all of our lives that love the theater, work in the theater, help to create the theater, and are part and parcel of that art form, but that's not everyone. And until things get back and folks get back to not being concerned about how they're going to eat and how they're going to pay the rent and how they're going to live, well, there's a lot of things that are put on hold, and theater is one of them. Luckily, there's a whole nother art form being constructed that is somewhat theater, and that's Zoom. Zoom is starting to become a sophisticated portal for theater. And that reaches young people also. And access to that in this digital world is important, and it'll help. It'll help.
Yeah, thank you.
I would just like to chime in on that. I think it's important to, as far as getting young people into the seats, I think all of these communities, especially our community, we need to develop a young people's theater company that involves a creative drama for the young, starting at a very young age. And because there's a gap that they call after school programs. And we always wonder, how come so many youngsters get involved with gangs and all that? It's because you don't have any after school programs. And so that gap should be filled by creative drama for the young, starting when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, and then move into a young people's theater to train them to get ready, you know, to fill these seats later on in their life, with what I talked about earlier with this national Black theater company. That should be a very important component of it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That is so important. And
an example of that is the Amazing Grace Conservatory.
oh,
Is a complete example of just what Mel was just describing. Although it's one group, but it's been going on for what, over 20 years now, and it is a phenomenon. The art forms and the artists that come in at about 5 years old and stay there 10 years, and when they walk away, they're serious artists. They know what that means and are disciplined. So that's an example. It's an example.
thank you for those. I appreciate it. So Robeson, while we're on, you know, artists and theaters and acting, he and his, I would say his contemporaries, you know, Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, and then Harry Belafonte, James Baldwin, Ruby and Ozzie D, Sidney Poitier, all of these amazing artists were known also of being activists for social justice and racial equality and equity. In today's time, what is the role of the artist in this regard? I think Robeson said something like it's our, I'm paraphrasing maybe, Mr. Guillory, you can help me a little bit, but he said, he made it a statement about it's the duty of the artist. What is the role of the artist in this regard, and why aren't there more speaking out? Is there still a fear of being blacklisted like Mr. Robeson? Is that still a thing? What is the role of the artist with regards to their activism and civic duty?
In regards to activism and civic duty, yeah. You know, everyone defines their own responsibility, how they define it. Yes, it's probably a clever answer to generalize and come up with some general answer to all of that. But we're not monoliths. Every single person on this panel, on this screen, thinks differently about a lot of things, thinks the same about many things. Artist, the whole idea of an artist is an individual. someone who thinks clearly, has a mind of their own, sees through a prism that is only theirs, and tries to interpret a world through that prism that is very specific. It has to be, and it should be. And roles, how one defines roles, artists, that sensibility to be aware of what is going on in the world, what is going on around them, and how it is affecting us, cause and effect. And it is reflected in the work in some way, shape, or form. One cannot not be affected by what is going on this planet, in this country. And it is in turn, goes through that prism and comes out as an art form. I can speak for the Roby Theater Company. I can speak for some actors that I know, artists that I know, that I've worked with. The Roby Theater Company, as I said, is about a social consciousness. We are a Black theater company. It is specifically that, Black. It's about that. It's about that point of view. It's about looking at everything and not being able not to, because we are Black in America. Good God. How could we not be affected? Just walking outside, you take your life into your hands. Not just because of COVID either, but because of the culture. And the culture has been built on racism. So our job is to work towards some kind of clarity and point of view. And that changes because it's all liquid. It's all organic liquid. 20 years ago, I was thinking one way about a lot of things. That's all changed. That's all changed. And in another 20 years, I'll be thinking about different things. I have conversations with artists every day, with people every day, that we have that conversation. Well, once you get past 50, you start thinking, you start thinking very differently, right? About things, how you thought about things when you were in your 20s and in your 30s. Because we evolve and we grow. And that is part of what an artist does. They grow.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is, makes all the sense in the world. We evolve, we change stances, and just to keep that progression and that moving. I just wonder, what the artists call is to the naysayers who say, who also on the other flip side of that, thumb their noses down on people in the entertainment industry or actors or people like Cullen who do have a stance, and they say they shouldn't comment on current events and Black Lives Matter. So I guess maybe Melvin can chime on this as well. What do we say to those people who say your job is only to act or to perform? And
well, bottom line, the role of the artist is in relationship to their particular community. Because one of the things I like to mention, you mentioned Nora, and you mentioned Langston Hughes, et cetera, like that. I think it's also important to remember some of the other people like Louise Patterson, who was the wife of William Patterson, and also Shirley Graham Du Bois, because Shirley Graham Du Bois was very important in the Federal Theater Project. And Federal Theater Project is when we had a national theater company before we lost it. But what I said earlier, I think every ethnic community and artists that come out from these particular ethnic community, whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, your primary function is the community in which you come out of. And then also to assist the main community, what I call that shopping mall community, because we exist in two communities. So the artists have a very, very important role, especially now. And the writers. One of the reasons that our failure to have a Black theater company, because in 1939, 1940, W.E.B. Du Bois, Hubert Harrison, William Patterson, Theophilus Lewis, they put the theory together for it, but a conflict developed between the actors and the playwright in terms on whether it should be a playwrights theater or actors theater. And they were never able to put that together. They went into two different directions, and we've been dealing with that ever since. It's important. The playwrights are very important because this is the top that creates the world, that creates the whole orbit for the actors and the technicians and everybody else that flows in terms of that. So the artists have a very, very important obligation to the community in which they come out of.
Thank you very much. Okay, so for our last 8 to 10 minutes, we'd like to go ahead and open it up for audience participation here. We have a couple of people. I don't know if I can see anyone, but I'll go ahead and call. I believe there's someone named Adrian Brown who would like to ask a question. Please feel free to open your mic and ask your question, Adrian.
We might need the assistance from Camille or Lillian. Adrian Brown, you open up the mic, please. Thank you.
We're asking him to unmute and he's not doing so.
There's a question in the chat I can take from one of the attendees in the meantime, and then when he opens up, we can go back to him. Mr. Guillory, coming from an entertainment background, how do you feel about the liberal position Hollywood tries to take on the degradation of the Black population? Hollywood has depicted all groups of people in a derogatory way and subjugated posture from the beginning of the invention of stage and motion picture. How do you feel about that?
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, a lot of brutal truth to that. But again, we're talking about generalities and an abstract entity, Hollywood. You know, you hear people, or at least I do, often talk about Hollywood has done this to me, Hollywood has done that. No, it's people that do things to people, very specific people. They have names, they have companies, they have missions. And if one does not coincide with their mission, one's image may be distorted. One's image may be trashed. In Los Angeles, in the Hollywood filmmaking, storytelling, work industry, there are many, many people who are simply not concerned. Their priorities are something else. What has happened so many times is that because their priorities are what they are, we and others get short shrift, distorted, because they don't know us. And they often do not care to know us. They know what they know. They live where they live. They contact and commiserate with who they commiserate, and it's not us most of the time. Yes, it's enraging, fiercely enraging what goes on, what has gone on. I was just reading yesterday, the Music Center got a $25 million gift from a couple to do BIPOC projects, to do a large part of that money is to go to BIPOC projects. Now, August Wilson was talking about that in his treatise, the Ground on Which I Stand. He talked about how the money works in this country for theater and how it's supported. Public funding, for the most part, the lion's share of that goes to white theaters. That's why those theaters have thrived. That's why they've morphed into being the mainstream. And that's why so many theaters of color come under the category of whatever happened to. Whatever happened to that company that did 2 or 3 productions? Those were wonderful actors. It was wonderful work, et cetera, but they only did 2 or 3 productions. They lasted a couple of years. They lasted 3 years, and then they went away. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but mostly it's that they weren't supported. They weren't supported financially. $25 million to the Music Center to do BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color work. That money should go to theaters of color so that they can develop and catch up with, quote, mainstream, quote, work, so that we can develop, so that we have the resources to sustain what we are doing and be able to pay a living wage to those who are working with us. That's just one small example. That happened in the past week, and that has been happening constantly. I've been part of companies that, they write grants, and they write a Black Actors Workshop, a Latino Actors Workshop, an Asian American Workshop, whatever, and they get funding specifically for that. And it's minimalized once they have it, and they end up doing what they want. They end up interpreting us, which addresses that previous questions about Hollywood and the theater world and how we are interpreted, how we are presented, what kind of truth is involved there. It's their truth because they have the means, usually, to do that, because they get the funding.
Thank you. And if Adrian Brown is back on, do we have you online, Adrian? Can you open up your mic? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question during this time? Please go ahead.
Okay, so my question was for Mr. Johnson and Mr. Guillory. When thinking about, first, thank you so much for your time. And then when thinking about funding, I think about, or just thinking about how things can become more popular and reach a broader audience, I think of Hamilton as kind of a big example of how people who are not traditionally inclined to, enter into theaters connected with this story. I wonder to your knowledge, do you think there's a benefit of maybe collaborating with African-American emerging digital institutions and, film institutions to get those stories to audiences that may feel, that theater might be inaccessible to them?
Yes. Mel, you can chime in, but the answer is, of course, yes. It's a collaboration. The theater is a collaboration. Most art forms are a collaboration. The industry, the film and television industry, is a collaboration. It's artists that come together to work on a single vision, and they do it. And often it works out well, sometimes not so well. Yes, we should all reach out and learn about one another so that we can work together, and everybody wins when that happens. The collaborative effort is a winner.
And all I could say on that point is that we should develop our own Hollywood. See, and also, because when you look over especially out here in Los Angeles, you see so many actors and artists out of work. And that's unacceptable. You know, an actor shouldn't have to drive Uber or work in a telemarketing. You should be able to come out, you trained to be an actor out here. You come out, you should have a living wages. See, and we so dependent upon the, what I consider the false concept of the Hollywood. So many people come out in Hollywood don't even exist. See, it's all about economics. We need to develop our communities so we can pay our actors so they can develop their craft. See, so instead of thinking about the false Hollywood that they have out here that they develop for their particular country, we need to develop our own Black Hollywood, just like the Latinos need to develop them. And then we can also, as I mentioned earlier, we can work in that shopping mall community, we can exist, but we need to bring something to the table from our community. We can't come there begging, asking for jobs and all that kind. That time is over. We need to create, it's enough wealth in our communities now all over the United States where we can take care of these things. You know, we can develop our, like we're talking about Zoom right now, all this kind of technology. We can develop that. We got to give our young people a chance to develop that. We don't need to imitate others because we created the originals of most of this stuff anyway, and we need to come back around to that.
Thank you. Next question, please. Just go ahead and unmute yourselves.
Oh, okay. Can I?
Yes, thank you.
You can hear me? Okay. Hi, Ben. Hi.
I'm fine.
So nice to see you. Just in general, I have enjoyed so many things at the Roby Theater that were so informing as well as entertaining. I'm an actress, but I teach at the LACC because I'm not being paid by the entertainment industry. So this is one person that that you were speaking about. But I wanted to ask you, Ben, in particular, and especially for all the young students that are out there listening to theater students and dance students and arts students, there's been a big rash of programs targeted toward minorities. We have Nora from the Bronx and Blackish and hashtag AF Black and Fargo with Chris Rock. And I can name any number of them. They've all placed minorities in places that they could have cast white people. How are you feeling about that? Do you think that it helps bring about the diversity that we've been trying to achieve?
Again, yes, of course, I think so. It helps. It helps. One, you know, actors look for jobs. There's a lot of artists that are self-starters, which is what I think every artist should be, is a self-starter. Someone who is motivated in some way to do their work. Not wait for someone to give them something or expect something or make them a part of a project. They need to make their own projects, especially in the industry, especially with technology the way it is. You can do a movie on your cell phone. I mean, okay. So, and actually a piece of quality work. I've seen it, you know, we have, so. Yes, that all helps, and that's as it should be. Many times, Edith, that probably is a consequence of maybe the sign of the times right now, because of Black Lives Matter, because of all of the murders of people of color over the last few years that have become prominent. By prominent, I mean we're catching it on tape. It's being videotaped. Murder is being videotaped, and you can watch it over and over and over again. People dying in front of us, authorities doing the killing. So this has caused a certain atmosphere that is looking for justice and also giving us a kind of sympathy to the cause. So in the industry, there are those who want to record that in some way, shape, or form, or want to help justice happen. So they open the doors a little wider. And mostly because there is an audience. Because we have to remember the industry is a profit-making organization. People are making money. That's what they do. That's why they do it. Yes, there are artists that have a whole idea of that part of it, but the industry, the film and television industry, is about making money. And if they don't see a profit, they can't do business. So that's not true so much with the theater world, because funding is available through public funding. And that comes with the responsibility too, by those who are funded, that they have to walk a certain course because they get public money, which should represent the public. So you get $25 million donated to the CTG, Center Theater Group, and that money's earmarked for BIPOC projects. But as I said, it's being done, it's being designed and executed by mostly probably white people. So yeah, this I'm fine with those doors that are open. They should have been open a long time ago. Again, you know, you have artists like Tyler Perry. You know, some people, you know, they talk like this about Tyler, but he is a tremendous entrepreneur. He has got so many people working in this. I'm speaking to somebody just yesterday who just spent 3 weeks there doing 21 episodes of a sitcom, half-hour sitcom with Tyler Perry. And she was only one of the actors who were housed and isolated, quarantined for 2 weeks before she started work, has all of that down and is doing that. And there are other entrepreneurs, there are other Black theater companies that are doing good work, Black filmmakers that are doing wonderful, wonderful, innovative, and just awe-inspiring work. So, you know, we're talking about a lot about what we don't have and why we should have it at this point. It is the 21st century, and things should be different. And again, it's enraging because it isn't different. And what the hell is going on makes you want to go out and buy a gun with all that is going on in this country. And I'm not that, well, anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. And to wrap up our Q&A session, we have one final question from Leith Burke. Do you want to go ahead and unmute? Thank you.
Hey, Big Brother Ben and Melvin, always good to spend time. Thank you guys for sharing your time and knowledge with the community. As a representative of the LACC Theater Department, thank you for the knowledge. I just wanted, you know, when I knew I was going to be speaking with you guys, I thought about the cycles that this country goes through and how it just, you know, most of us here on the panel, at least, and I assume many in the audience, have seen these cycles repeat themselves. And this country is so fond of one step forward and 2 steps back. The fact that we have a president running for election on basically Nixon's platform from over, you know, what is that, 70 years ago now, you know? And so you've seen these cycles that I'm referring to. You've been Black when it's hot, you've been Black when it's not. You've seen Blaxploitation, you've seen the rise of Tyler and Spike and the ups and downs that come in this industry of ours when funding is prevalent and funding is scarce. And how how do we avoid the cynicism of saying, yeah, it's good for now, and then it's just going to be the same old thing, and we get stomped down, and this false. How do we not see the current advances as false? How do you, I guess I should ask specifically, keep your hearts and your creative spirits open to keep up this eternal march? And maybe it is just the fact that you recognize that the march is eternal. But do you understand the question? These cycles, is there a way to break the cycle? Is there a way to say, no, this is really an advance. This is not going to be taken away from us. We are really making progress here. Because especially in today's environment, it's very hard to feel that any progress has been made.
Vote.
Yeah.
Vote. Yeah. It's it is a cycle, Leith, and it is often 2-3 steps forward, a couple of steps back. This is work. You know, artistry is work. It's discipline. God, you know that. We work. I've seen your discipline. I've seen your work specifically. And that discipline and that work came from discipline and work. Twofold. You know, if you're going to do a piece of work that you're going to be proud of, you have to work at it. You have to stay up late and get up early. That's what it takes. This all is work. One has to have purpose, of course. One has to have purpose, whatever the purpose is, whether it's gold that you're after or golden thoughts and dreams that you'd like to exhibit and share. This is those who don't fall by the wayside. There are a lot of casualties. You see them, you know them. They are casualties because of a million things. You don't need a laundry list from me. All you need to do is look around you. People stop doing things that they love, that they have a passion for many, many reasons. Some of those reasons, probably at the top of the list, is I have to make money because I got 2 kids and I got a mortgage. So I got to go out and get an 8-hour-a-day job, and I cannot do artwork. I can't paint 7 hours a day, or I can't paint 10 hours a day, and I can't go to rehearsals that are 4 hours every day, and then on the weekends too, because I've got kids and the roof leaks and I got to find out, and all of that, right? Still, we find a way. We find a way. Those of us who can figure it out and maybe be fortunate that we have probably maybe some support from others that believe in what we're doing. Roby's has a huge constituency. We just celebrated our 25th year anniversary last year. In Los Angeles, a Black theater company in Los Angeles celebrating a 25th anniversary. Go figure that one, right? Now, there's over 200 theaters in this town, everything from spit and gum operations where you got $10, I got 20, and Mel's got 16, and we're going to start a theater company, and, we're going to make that work. And we make that work for a little while, and then Mel gets a job somewhere, and you got to go take care of your kid, and I'm drunk. What? Right? Because I am in the blues because I can't figure it out. All kinds of reasons. If one has a singular purpose and has faith in that purpose and believes in what they're doing, they find a way, they follow through. Yes, casualties, but not so much. So we just have to, I think, work hard. It's work. People look at this industry and they see opening night. They see the red carpet. They see hoopla. They see that. They don't know, or they haven't thought about, that it's taken 3 months of a myriad of people's work to get to that place where the curtain goes up for 2 hours. And they enjoy what they deem is possible perfection. And they walk away talking and dreaming about what just happened. They don't think about all those hours for all those people for almost next to nothing, because that's the Roby Theater Company, where you know that very well. We cannot pay our artists what they're worth. They come because they see the value of what we're doing and they want to contribute, they want to be part of it, and they are suited to it. They're gifted and talented people. And they have a purpose. And we do too, so we make a place that this can happen, and we've been fortunate, and we have worked tediously to be able to do that. And thank God we've had support from so many people that allow us to be able to keep going on.
I wanted to echo and emphasize something that you touched on also, besides that allows for perseverance, is that faith, is having faith in your purpose, yourself, faith in something. But that faith is very important as an artist. You have to believe in something to persevere and get through this. And you touched on that, and I just wanted to emphasize that and highlight that. Melvin?
Yeah, well, Lee, I think if we don't, the cycles that you're talking about, if we don't correct, the cycles actually started during the time of W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. You know, the conflict that developed over intellectual education as opposed to practical industrial education. So Du Bois developed what he called the talented tenth, where he felt that 10% of the descendants of the chattel slaves of America would get an education and reach back for the other 90%. But Carter G. Woodson came along a few years later and convinced W.E.B. Du Bois there was a flaw in that with his excellent book called The Miseducation of the Negro. He pointed out that that 10% will have very little to do with that other 90%. See, so that's why we keep going through these particular cycles, because we have basically abandoned the intellectual education is nice, but we also needed that practical education that Booker T. Washington was talking about. And I remember a question that came up in the chat a little earlier where they mentioned the Divine Nine, you know, which is the basic intellectual aspect of the African-American community. And it's very important for the Divine Nine to amplify this type of leadership, because right now I'm working with one of the older playwrights from the Roby, George Corman. He got a play called New Man's that deals with fraternities and sororities. We get ready to do a reading on that. But it's very important for the Divine Nine to pick up a book called Stolen Legacy by Dr. James and examine that book, break it down, and move forward, because I like the name Divine Nine, and I think the direction that we move depends upon these fraternal organizations, because it always has, you know. So I think that's one of the main reasons we keep going into these cycles, because our leadership have moved away from that 90% mass people. Right here in LA, you got so many people homeless that have been uprooted out of the Watts community. It used to be a historical Black community out here. Most of those people is laying in the streets. If you don't believe that, just go down to Skid Row and see all of the tents. See? So the Divine Nine, the leadership, you have an obligation. That's the first obligation, is to your people. See? And then to the community as a whole. So we need to deal, we need to deal with that. And we're only gonna move as far as our leadership take us. See, As far as when we're talking about these divine nine, the intellectual part of our community, we got to reach back for the other 90. We got to put that together. That's why we keep going in circles. We got to be able to look at all of that, all of these brilliant people that laid the foundation for us. You know, Du Bois, Patterson, Robeson. You just go down the list. Dr. King. You know, and all of them was involved in fraternal organization. Shirley Graham. You know, Louise Patterson. You just go down the list. S.C. Robeson. You know. It's a whole, we got all kind of examples that have already laid the plans for us. See, all we got to do is implement those plans.
Thank you so much. That is amazing. Melvin Johnson, Bill Guillory, Danny Glover, Sydney Wayne Davis, and all of the other company members in front and behind. Thank you for joining us today for this very robust conversation. Thelma?
Thank you. Wow, what an awesome afternoon. Today's Black Lives Matter Theater was very informative. I will definitely carry all of the knowledge that was shared today forevermore. It's very important for us to focus on the Black community, and to not have funding for the Black communities is a disgrace. Melvin, I take your challenge. I'm a member of the Divine Nine. There are other Divine Nine members on. Edith, I see you. Dr. Porche, we hear you. We are organizations that have worked together for hundreds of years for social justice. We accept the challenge and promise you that we are going to make a difference. Again, we say thank you for being with us this afternoon. I know we ran over, but I hope that you appreciated the time that we allowed for the town hall meeting. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mary Gallagher, President of Los Angeles City College.
Oh my goodness, so wonderful, so incredibly wonderful. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Guillory, Mr. Glover, what you did for us this afternoon, as well as everyone else who participated. My team knows my wheels are always turning, and I already have ideas. We have a brand new 700-seat amazing theater that should be ready to use in 2023. I am committed through our Race and Equity and Social Justice Center to make sure that we have a prevalent, very prevalent space for what we need to do to have this movement take shape. I want to thank you for giving me the idea. And when it comes to money, I promise you I will work tirelessly to bring the resources here so that we can bring our young people from Central Los Angeles into our amazing art building that we've just newly renovated, our amazing cinema TV program, our incredible theater that we'll have, and we will introduce the youth in our community to the arts and help them to have Mr. Johnson, to have that afternoon program. You have given me an incredible idea, and I cannot wait. We have a great relationship with LAUSD. I can't wait to put these programs into place. So I'm not going to take everyone's time up because we were gifted with your time today. Thank you for your time, for your energy, for your words of wisdom. I heard so much. And Mr. Guillory, I want to tell you that with everything that we can do, what our commitment is for the work that we will be doing going forward, and I look at Dr. Day and see her shaking her head, we will do everything we can to make sure that things are different. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It would be great for us to be able to do something again with you for our students. Hopefully, I mean, even if we could do something virtually, I have an idea, and I'll have my equity team reach out to you to see what we can do, because I've got an idea on something right now that I think would be amazing for our students. They could use your words, your wisdom, your beliefs. And I wrote that down, believe, but it's also discipline and work. So again, thank you. I so appreciate everyone who's here. And I want to give a huge shout out to our equity team led by Dr. Thelma Day, who puts these amazing town halls together for us. Oh my gosh, Thelma, thank you, thank you, thank you. So everyone have a fabulous weekend. I can't wait to continue our work. Thank you again. God bless everyone.
Thank you all. Have a great one. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.